All right, good evening. We have the first meeting on the agenda tonight is the notice of a public hearing of the Cunningham Township Board. And this meeting is to discuss and to take public input on the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey, Ms. Colacetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin, Mr. Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Marlin, Ms. Chenoweth,
Here.
Ms. Owana.
Here. Right, so as I mentioned, this is to provide public input on the 2023-2024. All interested citizens and organizations are encouraged to come and provide their input. If they do not wish to speak at today's hearing, they can also email the supervisor at cunninghamtownship.org. So now it's time for public input. Is there anybody who would wish to provide input to the town board? All right, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. We have 2 more meetings tonight. All right, let me know when you're ready. All right, I'd like to call to order the Cunningham Township Board for today, June 12th. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey, Ms. Colacetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin, Mr. Quisenberry, Mayor Marlin, Ms. Chenoweth,
Present.
Ms. Owana.
Here.
First item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have minutes from April 10th, 2023 and May 8th, 2023. Are there any substantive corrections? Without any, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Chandra and seconded by Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, those minutes are approved. Are there any additions to the agenda tonight?
No.
All right. Now it's time for public participation. Anybody who would like to approach and provide input to the town board may do so at this time. Are there any communications via email from council? Sorry, township. All right, committee to verify bills. Danielle?
Sure, and this last month, we had $71,481.08 in the town fund. In the general assistance fund, this was expenditures. In the general assistance fund, we had $112,366.22. Total expenditures for the month were $183,847.30. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the bills before I talk about the memo.
Should we do a motion to verify the bills first?
Sure.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to verify the bills.
I'll move to verify the bills.
Second.
Moved by James, seconded by Chandra. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, those bills are done. Now, back to Danielle.
Thank you. So you'll see in the supervisor's memo that essentially general assistance has stayed pretty steady. We have 60 current participants, down from 63 last month. Our disability and wellness track is the one with the most number of participants, 44. We have 12 on the education and employment track. And I'll be honest, a lot of them are being assessed to see whether or not they actually belong in the disability and wellness track. We may see a bump in general assistance this summer, as we do see some layoffs in summer. We continue to have transportation assistance. We've done 116 annual passes, plus we've supported 67 folks in getting dash passes since MTD started to charge bus fare. I will point out with rental assistance, we expected this. We're at 110% of our budget as of June 5th. Which is actually a little bit better than I thought we would be. We've spent $137,790, and we have started the expanded rental assistance program. So we do the 1 to 4 months of rental assistance based on need. It can include future rent. We particularly do that for folks who are homeless, who are doing move-ins. And we are now capped at 225% of the poverty level. So I think we are feeling very comfortable with the City of Urbana ARPA dollars that will be fine in terms of rental assistance during this time frame. And we hope that as kind of the pandemic wraps up, that we will see a decrease in rental assistance cases. I will point out just a few other items of note. The CUPHD funding for emergency hotel. We had 4 units funded in that way. That funding is now dried up. We are in the we no longer have those 4 in hotel. We do not when funding dries up, we don't just exit people from hotels. So we do basically know a month in advance or 2 months that our funding is drying up, and so we work to exit those individuals to permanent housing. So it wasn't a situation where we just closed down. That said, we do have folks on our wait list, and we have a grant going into the state on Thursday for emergency housing, transitional housing. We're hoping that we basically have had this vision of expanding to include transitional housing. We were not funded by the city. We will only be partially funded by the county for that, and so we're going after state dollars to see if we can still realize that vision. So more on that later, but we do have our 4 hotel units, our 3 rapid rehousing units, and our 8 units for families, all of which are full. I wanted to point out that utility support is probably the biggest thing that we're facing. I sent an email to basically every leader in the county about utility bills. LIHEAP is closed for the season, so you can see the vectors smashing together, right? LIHEAP is closed for the season. We have an increase in what it costs for electricity. We now have hot, it doesn't feel like it today, but we had a hot season, and we're gonna have a hot season this summer. So what's the plan, community? Like, what's the plan? The answer is that the only plan that I am aware of is that Salvation Army provides utility assistance for seniors and people with disabilities who need to have their electricity on only, and they only do $200. I will say that what we're seeing are bills that are closer to $1,200. So we are the only program, we only serve Urbana residents who are actively shut off or have a imminent disconnect. And we are the only program that I'm aware of that's functioning right now. So we receive 40 calls in one day. We've been seeing a pretty stiff increase. Luckily, we have summer interns. So we have 3 summer interns, all of whom are working on this, along with our front desk advocate. So I just want to point out that this is of issue, and since you all are political leaders, when you hobnob with the other political leaders in the community, you may want to mention that they need to pay attention to this issue. I will say, okay, your power is turned off. What does that mean? In some cases, like housing authority units, very importantly, but also other units, it's in your lease that if you don't have the power on, you are not in compliance with your lease. So if you have your power disconnected, you can also be evicted in many cases, in which case you now you have a power bill you need to pay off to get into a new place, and you have an eviction on your record. So I just want to point out it's no small. Some people are like, oh, well, just go without air conditioning. And I just want to be clear that like most folks are going without air conditioning. So this is, and so it means that they could lose housing. So I just want to, I'm going to ring the bell on that issue every single table I sit at. We have a new partnership with Maxip Wireless. They're a new Urbana business as well. I encourage people to visit them. They're in the lower level of Lincoln Square. They're great, and they helped move almost 50 new devices and services at our Back to our Schools Out celebration. Really enjoying working with them along with Cricket Wireless. We continue to need angel donor funds for activities that are not funded through our other programs. And you can see that essentially, since we started the fund, we've brought in over $250,000. And about $40,000 this year. We're putting a lot of that towards housewarmings for people to move into housing and get furnishings from Salt and Light. I will say food assistance requests are up, so we tend to be full every month on that. And we're looking to work with our partners for expansion. Right now, we are in conversation with Stone Creek Food Pantry in terms of expansion, but we have no agreement at this point. And I will just end with some beautiful photos if you didn't get a chance to look at them. We had a great event of over 200 people at the Schools Out celebration. A lot of local businesses and artists providing entertainment and food, and we had more partners than we ever have before in terms of helping people connect to services. So there's some great photos in there. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the supervisor's memo.
Any questions for Danielle? Chandra?
I noticed in your report about the long wait times at the DMV and elevating that to the Secretary of State. How do you, what's your plan for that elevation?
Yeah, so I spoke with State Rep Carol Ammons on this issue, and she asked me to pull together documentation of what we've seen. So I had our social work intern, who's now, we've hired her on as a full-time staff member with the grant funding. She had put together a letter and had met with the caseworkers and documented the complaints. So essentially, I now have a letter that I would like to send to our senator, our state rep, and Alexis Janulius, our new Secretary of State. I will note that I personally went to the DMV because I also want to make very clear, I want to personally witness the issue. And the place was entirely empty when I was there. And you're supposed to have an appointment. The way the DMV currently operates is you have to basically try to get an appointment same day at 7:30 in the morning. There's kind of two pieces of the DMV. The part that it has to do with registration renewal it flows, but anything else related to getting a new ID, which is what homeless folks who get robbed on the street on a regular basis need, they need their IDs up to date. It is through an appointment process. And so it's unacceptable. Most of people in this community are going to Monticello and Rantoul when they have a local DMV in Champaign and Tuscola. It's just completely, it's inappropriate and it needs to stop. So you all are constituents as well of the Secretary of State. I'm not the only one. I'm certainly going to provide that documentation. And I'd be happy to send the letter that I sent to the Secretary of State to the town board as well. And if you feel like signal boosting and amplifying, that would be super. Because it really impacts homeless residents when they do not have IDs. They literally cannot get into voucher housing without an identification. They cannot access all kinds of services when they don't have an ID. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal that they don't have that access.
I appreciate your work on that because I too have heard a lot of complaints about there are no appointments available, and I've experienced the same thing trying to renew my driver's license, so I just did it in Chicago.
Yeah.
So yes, I would appreciate a copy of that, and
Yeah.
I will plan to send a letter of my own.
That
Thank you.
would be wonderful. Thank you.
Chris?
Danielle, do you know why they're only doing appointments? Are they short-staffed or what's going on?
They were not short-staffed when I was there. They were not short-staffed. I mean, I could say something rude at this point, but I'll stop.
Sharice?
The question that you just asked, according to, because I've had the same issues that you guys have had, and according to when I talked to somebody, it had to do with the COVID thing, and they decided to stick with it. But
Yeah, it's unacceptable
yeah,
for a
but it's
public
like
office
right now
to do that.
you don't need to stick with it, and it I had the same problem that Chandra had about renewing the driver's license, and it basically I ended up going to Rantoul, where they have walk-in. There are other places that have walk-in. You can do walk-in in Rantoul, and I think you said, what was the other?
Monticello, and then James
Yeah.
mentioned Tuscola.
So Rantoul is the nearest one where you can just walk in, as far as I know.
So maybe you should send reimbursement for your gas to Chicago to the Secretary of State, and you might get the point.
Any other questions for Danielle? All right.
Did you,
there an
assessor
update
might
from the-
have an update. No, okay.
No? Now I've lost my agenda. There we go. I don't believe there's any unfinished business. We just had reports of the officers. We do have new business, which is Resolution T 2023-06005R, a resolution to create a decennial committee in compliance with the Decennial Committee on Local Government Efficiency Act, Public Act 102-1088. Danielle, are you going to present on this one?
Yeah, sure. So it's in the supervisor's memo, and you have a resolution in your packet. And there's also Illinois Municipal League flyer, so much information on this topic. So basically, the legislature requires all townships to establish a committee. It must be established by this month, and it has to be every 10 years thereafter to study local efficiencies and report recommendations to the county board in that area. All of the elected officials of the township serve. I believe that includes the mayor as the chair, so I've included her in that. It must also include 2 township residents, and then it can include other appointees as the supervisor sees fit. And it's chaired by myself, who recommends appointments to the town board. So I've attached a resolution. I also reached out to three folks who I think would be appropriate. Carol Elliott, who's with us tonight, who's the former Cunningham Township supervisor, also a resident of the township. Darcy Sandifer, who's our deputy town clerk, who also is a resident of the township. And then Michelle Jett, who's chief of staff in the office of the Champaign County Executive. And I thought that would be appropriate since the report is going to the county. And I want it to be useful to the county. I mean, we could act like this is a check-the-box moment, but I'm not really a check-the-box person, so I wanted to make it something that would be meaningful. We are required to meet 3 times within 18 months and produce a report. I'm going to suggest that we hold our meetings at the same time or right before, if need be, the town board meetings, which meet the second Monday of every month at 6 p.m., and the first meeting be in the fall. After I've secured an intern to support some of the research work. I really think other than tonight, we might be able to do it in 3 meetings. So I'll work with the clerk's office on what would be appropriate times and work with the appointees on what works for them. Essentially, and I guess I will just say up front, you know, it has a broad scope, but the purpose that I think would be useful is, one, to look at collaborations with other entities, the city, the parks, the schools. Like, how could we've really been building collaboration at Township, and so just looking at that piece, how could we better collaborate? And I would say particularly with the city, you know, having a new community development director and whatnot, and both the township and the city working in housing, but in slightly different lanes. I think it would be really helpful to look at that piece. The second is to look at townships in the county, and basically there are certain townships in the county where the public can't get basic information about those townships. I've received 6 calls in the last 3 months about Urbana Township in particular. Can't get a call back, can't apply for general assistance, don't know what the office hours are, and they're supposed to be posted with the county clerk. But if those offices don't provide the information, that information's not available. So I think it's a very easy FOIA process to have our committee, or the intern is working for the committee, basically FOIA all the townships and get basic information. Who's the supervisor? What's the budget? How many general assistance people do they serve? People do they serve with general assistance? How much is their general assistant budget last year? And publish that information and give it to the county so that they have that information, and give it to the county clerk so that we know who the elected leaders are. And because by statute, by state statute, every single person in the city, in the state of Illinois, outside of the city of Chicago, should have access to general assistance if they are awaiting disability determination. That's the law. It's not happening, but that's the law. So I feel like, you know, why not use this as a moment to do a little bit of fact-finding, and that looks at government efficiencies and impact in township to see, okay, how can we better collaborate? Do they need additional support from our township? City of Champaign Township currently processes general assistance for several other townships. that's something that can happen if those offices don't feel that they have the capacity to operate a general assistance program. Or maybe they need linkages and connections. We've for a long time wanted to ask Rantoul Township to join our rental assistance consortium. So that's an opportunity for collaboration. So I think looking at like what exists in the townships in the county and how we can collaborate would be actually a good use of our time in this committee. So that is essentially, we have the broad purpose, and that's the more narrowed purpose that I'm proposing. That said, ultimately it's up to the group to decide what scope you want to have within the scope of efficiencies and increased accountability, which are the two things mentioned in the state statute. With that, I know you'll entertain a motion. I'm happy to answer any questions about the resolution before you.
Maybe you misspoke, but I just thought I heard you say the Urbana Township is not providing information. Is that different than the Cunningham Township?
Yeah, so to be super confusing, but Cunningham Township is contiguous with the city of Urbana, as you know, because you serve on the town board. The outside of Cunningham Township, kind of sea around the Cunningham Township, is the Urbana Township.
Okay.
So it is outside the city of Urbana. Many of the children in Urbana Township largely go to Urbana schools. There's a lot of connection there. And for example, currently anyone in Urbana schools is eligible for our emergency housing. So we do at times serve folks who were in Urbana Township, still have kids in Urbana schools, right? And we serve them with housing. So same thing with utility assistance. Right now, you just have to have an Urbana address because it's way too hard to figure out who's in and who's out, and it's all angel donor funded. So there's ways in which we actually support residents in Urbana Township. But I think the issue, I'm just giving an example, and I have all the documentation to prove it. I got 6 cases where there's no response. And that's pretty significant for those residents. It's a small population.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sharice?
So is the Urbana Township versus Cunningham Township have to do with incorporated and unincorporated?
Yeah, so the incorporated part of Urbana is Cunningham Township, so we have the exact same boundaries as the city. And then the unincorporated parts that may have Urbana in their address, but they're in the Urbana Township, are outside of city limits.
Okay, so the, just having, like you said, having an Urbana address, even if you're not in Cunningham Township, you are still eligible for Cunningham services?
You are not eligible for general assistance, which is paid by the tax levy and the taxes of the people of Urbana, the incorporated part. You are eligible for things that the supervisor has designated as being outside of Urbana based on the funding source. So, for example, I told donors, and we have donors from Monticello. We actually have donors from Florida and Washington, D.C. We have donors all over the place. And based on that, what we do is we can do angel donor funds based on the parameters of the rules that we set. So our angel donor funds typically support people in the county. Our state funding, we are required to serve people in the county with some of our state dollars, right? And so but if you look at certain funding sources, let me give you an example. The city of Champaign is funding our street outreach van that will serve the whole county. And part of the reason they were interested is because it serves the whole county, and we do a lot of work in Champaign. But our rental assistance dollars, which are from our levy, our general assistance dollars, which are from our levy, they come from Urbana incorporated residents, and they will only serve Urbana incorporated residents because we're very careful with our levy. It only serves the people who put into the pot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So basically, it depends on the program as to whether or not you're served.
Okay, so my next question, can I make another question? My follow-up on that is regarding Urbana Township people, are they covered by the county board or the county clerk?
They are covered by Urbana Township with general assistance only. So they are entitled to receive general assistance. And if they don't receive general assistance or they don't receive a response, we direct them to the Public Aid Appeals Committee, which I serve on, Andy Cornstrom serves on. And essentially, is where constituents who are not getting a response can appeal to that committee. So, but they are entitled to general assistance if they qualify according to those rules. One of the things we'll also ask for is basically, what are your rules? So we understand what the parameters are, and that'll be public information. Now, it'll be published, people can see what the rules are, they can see if they qualify, they can see how to get an application in, et cetera. And I would, hope that if the county sees that there's certain townships that are not in compliance, that they may be interested in taking action on that.
So this information isn't on the county clerk's website at all?
No, the county clerk requests some basic information, but if it's not including the audits and the budgets, but if it's not provided, there isn't right now a stick.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Chandra?
I was gonna offer a motion,
Before you do, can I ask a question?
please.
Thank you. So you had mentioned that the mayor was going to be added. Does the mayor need to be on this?
My understanding is that because she is an elected official of the township, as the chair of the township, she is already on. And I'm seeing
Okay.
Darcy nod. I know she did a lot of research on this.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's why you don't see her name
Thank you.
or your names.
All right, Chandra, I will entertain a motion.
I move approval of resolution number T-2023-06-005R, a resolution to create a decennial committee in compliance with the Decennial Committee on Local Government Efficiency Act, Public Act 102-1088.
I'll second.
All right, moved by Chandra and seconded by James. Is there any discussion? Therese?
So Danielle, you wanted to, with the formation of this committee, we're all on the committee, and what were the days or the times that you were talking about?
So once you establish the committee and who's appointed, I'll work with their schedules. I expect the first meeting after tonight would be in the fall. And we would have to have the report produced by next June. So essentially, I think we'll meet in the fall, September, October timeframe. It'll be at our regularly scheduled meeting. We'll add the decennial committee members, right, to that portion of the meeting. And then we'll give them we'll give, hopefully, our intern who's assigned to this kind of their charge. There may be other things that the committee members want to do as well to contribute to it. You can even hire outside consultants and spend a lot of money if you want to. I mean, that is in the thing. And then we come back and we can do like a midpoint look at where we're at, and then we can finalize our report as a committee and send that to the board. And if we need to have additional meetings, we can schedule them at our regularly scheduled town board times. So I expect 3 more meetings minimally, starting this fall.
Okay.
Chandra?
Is this a funded mandate?
It's not a funded mandate, it's what is called an unfunded mandate.
James?
So, and I believe this is the first time we've done this. I think the bill was just signed last year.
Correct.
One thing I do want to make sure is that I know we will have public input associated with the meetings because they have to be conducted under the Open Meetings Act because they're related to the township. But I do want to consider community outreach for feedback about this process. The reason why this process exists and the reason why it passed our state legislature and our governor signed it is because the state of Illinois has a lot of units of government, and it's reasonable at times to look at them for efficiency and see if something can be done about it. There's lots of examples that would do with more scrutiny than maybe what we're doing here with Urbana and Cunningham Township, but that's the process, and I do think we do need to have input on it, because I personally have heard questions from constituents about specifically about township government and city government. Why do we have both of them? I think it's a good opportunity to explain that and reinforce why we're in that model. Because if we don't touch it, some people will push back and say, you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, and I believe I didn't include the entire act, but there's a provision that says that each meeting, you should also reach out to kind of survey how it went. So essentially, it's up to it's up to the committee how far you want to reach. I think the opportunity that is before us is a public education opportunity, and it's also an opportunity to shore up those efficiencies. I feel like I've done a lot in that regard. We have 23 official collaborators with MOUs or letters of support in the community, so there's a lot of collaboration happening. But I think we could go deeper, and let's make sure that lane definition is clear between, say, RPC and Cunningham Township, or Cunningham Township and City of Champaign Township, or City of Urbana and Cunningham Township, so that we're trying to make the most use of the limited dollars that the public has.
All right, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that is passed. Excellent. I don't believe is any other items before this board. So with that, we will adjourn. We will have the city council start at 7 p.m. in approximately half an hour. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. So I suppose this is not the next meeting, since it's on the Cunningham Township Board meeting, but we do need to do a roll call again.
Excuse me, what are we doing? I don't know how I don't understand how the decennial committee could meet the same meeting that we enacted it. That does not seem to provide the proper level of notification for the body to meet.
It was noticed along with this meeting. So it did go through proper notification, and I believe the question is whether, did you all take a vote on the resolution? You did?
Yes, we
Okay.
did.
I had a moment of not paying attention. Okay, so the decennial committee, the appointment was part of the resolution that you passed. That's the only piece that I would question, is you've already done your appointment as part of your resolution. But the committee itself has been noticed along with the town board meeting.
If I may add as well, on the IML fact sheet on the second page, under committee meetings, it notes that as long as you notice it in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, which this qualifies being a part of this agenda, that the meetings may occur as part of the regularly scheduled meetings as part of the agenda.
Yeah, so we're basically following that piece.
So we would have gone ahead and had the meeting without impaneling it? If that had failed? If that resolution had failed?
Yeah, if your resolution had failed, essentially, you would want to table your decennial committee meeting,
Can I make a suggestion?
but it didn't.
Okay.
So the mayor's not here, Grace is not here available. I'm wondering if there's any, if we should table this until July. We can't. Okay. we have
I'm not
to-
going to argue any further, but I'm a little bit confounded how we could have it, impanel it, and have it at the same meeting.
So right now, we approve 3 people to join this committee, and I see one person is here. Are the other 2 people? Oh, Darcy's here?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so Michelle Jett said she would try to make it, but she wasn't sure she could make this time. So, yeah, so we vote quorum. I think the question would be, the safest bet, based on my reading of the Public Act, is that the committee should, by constituting the committee, there's the resolution, and then we have our first meeting. It's within the agenda, and it's been properly noticed. You could table everything that is on from B. Well, you have to do public participation, you have to do a roll call. You could table everything else, but I would encourage you to have the committee meeting to make sure that we're in compliance with the Public Act.
All right, so if I understand you correctly, we need to move forward with the committee, which would be A, B, and D are mandated, and C and E would be something that we could do at a next meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. I think you've already appointed the committee membership as the resolution, so I think you would need to do a roll call and public participation minimally.
Is there any objection to that? Nope. Okay. Well, let's attempt this. Phyllis, would you like to call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here?
Mr. Evans, I know he's here. Ms. Hersey,
Here.
Colacetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Here?
All right. So as Danielle had mentioned, we had just,
I do, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just,
Ms. Elliott, Christopher,
Here.
and myself, I'm here.
Lily, would you like to come and sit up here with us? It's not going to be long, but tell you what, next time. All right. All right, so since we passed the resolution to appoint the committee, I believe we satisfied B. And then D is public participation. Is there any public that would like to address the body? Do we need a motion to table the other two, Phyllis? Yes, we do. Okay, so I entertain a motion to table C, which is statement of purpose, and E, which is set deadlines for next steps.
So moved.
Second.
All right, move.
Process. I think when you table, you'll have to set a date to table it to, is that correct? Okay, the clerk is. So I would suggest that you table it to the October meeting. And that will be the next decennial committee meeting. If for some reason that needs to change, we can address it, but I would say do it to October. And I will have the intern in place and we'll be able to have our kind of first substantive meeting.
Do we have, is there any objection to that suggestion?
No, I
That would be,
amend my motion to that.
It's October 9th
Thank you,
at
that was
6
what I was
o'clock.
Can I clarify, though, so are we still counting that as the second meeting of 3?
It would, but I think that we would then have 4
fourth.
meetings, I think,
Okay.
to get where
Thank
we
you.
want to go.
Yep, thank you.
Is the second comfortable with that change?
Yes.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, you have to speak up because we can't hear you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Now we can adjourn the meeting. All right, we will
Did
be
you
back.
ask, did you call for public participation?
Yes, and there was none.
I did. Thank you for that. We will see you in about 25 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy your break.